Hello everyone, this is John Smith with Punk Rock Politics. This is my 5th video. It's a new channel, brand new channel I've started. Well, I shouldn't say brand new, but it's pretty damn new. You would say it was a brand new car if it was like 4 or 5 days old, right? So, you know. Anyway, so I'm going to show you a quick video, and until I figure out how to put stuff on my screen, and you have to bear with me here. I do have like TVs and monitors where I could sync my phone to those things, but unfortunately there's a delay, and a lot of times the mouth is off from the voice and it becomes a problem. And so for now, for the early on videos, I'm going to have to, do my best. Fortunately, this video doesn't turn sideways, or I could do something like this and you wouldn't even really know the difference, but this Real Clear Politics video has a couple of bugs. And hopefully it doesn't freeze as bad as the last video, which I just had to erase because I spent a lot of time doing the video and said the wrong name of... I had said one of the candidates' names instead of the person who was interviewing Sanders. Anyway, this is an interview, part of an interview with Bernie Sanders, and he was being interviewed by MSNBC's Rachel Maddow. So I'm going to play you the video, and then we're going to discuss real quick. And this is going to be a nice brief video, and you're going to get a lot more brief videos in the future, more pointed and condensed videos about specific topics. I'm going to put out as much content as I can. Please like, share, comment, and consider becoming a patron. I said it weird. Patron on patreon.com, which is, for my page, Punk Rock Politics. Thanks. Let's see here. All right. Let's see this interview. Sorry, it's by the way, this is posted by Ian Schwartz on March 5th, 2020 on Real Clear Politics.
You've also said that you're running not only against the political establishment, but against the Democratic Party establishment.
Democratic establishment, yeah.
Sorry, this I said there's some bugs with this video. They have to do a better job with their videos on Real Clear Politics because there's all kinds of issues with it freezing, and I've watched this video numerous times over the last few days and shown people, and it's just, there's some bugs. But anyway, it is very important, and here we go.
You've also said that you're running not only against the political establishment, but against the Democratic Party establishment.
Democratic establishment, yeah.
You have a new ad out today featuring President Obama praising you in the past. Is President Obama part of the Democratic establishment that you say you're running?
And I want to say something about Barack Obama. I'm not going to tell you he's my best friend, but I talk to him every now and then. And I have a lot of respect for him. Do we have disagreements? Of course we had. But I will tell you something which impresses me very much about Barack Obama. I talked to him many months ago. Yeah, we talked about the campaign. And I had called him up, and I think all of the candidates basically had dropped, and I dropped in to see him. And he said, you know what, Bernie, I'm not going to get involved. All right? And he kept his word. You may have seen just the other day, he said, I think Biden had reached out to him and wanted his support. He said, no, I think I will be more effective in supporting the eventual winner, not getting involved early on. I know that there's an enormous pressure on him to support Biden. And the fact that he's not doing that makes me respect him even more.
If at the end of the day, it turns out that Vice President Biden is going to have more delegates than you do heading into the convention, will you drop out?
Of course, he'll drop out. He will win. I mean, we'll run through, I suspect we will run through the process. I think people have a right to vote. But if Biden walks into the convention or at the end of the process has more votes than me, he's the winner.
And that's true whether or not he has a majority or just a plurality.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what I've said. Look, here's the story, and there's some confusion about this. Last time around in 2016, you talked about 2016, you'll remember that before the very first vote was cast in Iowa, Hillary Clinton had 500 superdelegates at her side. She walked in campaign to get 500 superdelegates. I thought that was totally outrageous and absurd and undemocratic. We fought very hard in the democratic rules process to get rid of all superdelegates. That is my preference. I think it should be the decision of the people, not Washington insiders. We lost. But what we did get is not getting rid of all superdelegates at the convention voting, but that on the first ballot, there will be no superdelegates. So in other words, we go into the first ballot, it is representatives, delegates who are represented by the people. And I think that that's right. And what I have said is that I think it would be a real disaster for the Democratic Party if, I'm running against you and you have more votes than me. And I say, well, wait a second, I don't want Rachel. I want somebody else who didn't get as many votes as she did. Let's have the superdelegates vote on the second ballot. Do you know what that would do? The Democratic electorate, people would say, the person who got the most votes didn't get selected.
Most delegates.
Most delegates, I'm sorry. Right, most delegates.
I have one more.
Now, it's important to point out when Bernie said the most votes, the person with the most votes, should be the person that wins the Democratic nomination. And he's absolutely correct, and that's what I felt my whole life. Before I even knew who Bernie Sanders was, it's what anybody who truly believes in democracy believes. The person with the most votes should win. And it is very funny to see the doublespeak behind the Democratic Party. Elites that, it's absurd that Hillary Clinton got more votes than Donald Trump, and Donald Trump became president, but somehow it's not absurd that you want to do the same thing in your nomination convention to pick your Democratic candidate. I mean, it's the same thing. So, yeah, both things are absurd. Simple. Can't do the same thing and then say it's not absurd or undemocratic. They're both undemocratic processes that are ancient, archaic, silly, just filled with nonsense. They're propagated and, propelled by very old ideologies of people who were trying to keep power. Our founding fathers. And very wealthy, educated men who wanted to stay in power. Anyway, white men. In case that's not obvious, but make sure I say it or I don't want to get in any trouble. Even I forgot to say that word as an adjective. Nonetheless, so what Bernie Sanders is saying here, he's talking about 2016, he's talking about the Democratic Party. He's absolutely right. And we're going to make this nice and short, this video, and I'm going to make a lot of other more pointed, condensed videos about various topics. In 2016, the Democratic Party suffered the most losses since Reconstruction. That was the time after the Civil War. This is when the Democratic Party was the party of segregation and slavery, etc. Everything's switched now, but in a lot of ways from the Republican and the Democratic Party. But anyway, they lost 1,000 seats up and down the ticket, yet they're saying they should pick a worse candidate than Hillary Clinton with severe mental issues and health issues. He's definitely got health issues, and they appear to be mental. And somehow that's how, if we don't do that, we're going to lose to Trump. Well, that's a sure way to definitely lose to Trump, by picking somebody like Biden. And hurt the down ballot races. This is what we hear from so many elites and people on MSNBC and CNN, and it's an absurd proposition, which is clearly propaganda, and they can't possibly believe it because there's no data or reason to, believe it. They don't back it up with anything. Bernie Sanders brings out and excites the base. Now you have to remember, in the primaries and caucuses, it's very restricted in a lot of ways. In most states, it's very hard to vote unless you register for a party, and you do so in a certain amount of time. And, you've heard about these long lines in Texas and issues in North Carolina and Minnesota, in California, again with the long lines and suppression. Definitely a massive suppression effort in Harris County in Texas. I have a video about that, but definitely a problem. There was issues, obviously, with Iowa and New Hampshire, where Bernie clearly should have gotten more delegates. He got the popular vote. This whole system is just, and it's not a democratic system. And it leaves all kinds of issues and questions, and we need to reform and have a simple system that is eventually put across the country, and universal. And you shouldn't have to register as a party to vote in a primary. You should have open primaries. Anyway, Bernie Sanders brings up a lot of good points, and he says that if Joe Biden has the most, he said votes, because it should be about votes, but unfortunately it's about delegates, which can be allocated in numerous ways, and the person with more votes in a state doesn't necessarily get the most delegates, or in a county, or in, or however you want to describe it, or in a precinct. And in 2016, if you look it up, it's just absurd what they did to Bernie Sanders. He would have anywhere from 20 to 50% more voters in states than Hillary Clinton, and somehow she'd get the same, close to, or more delegates for the convention. So it's just the whole thing was a nightmare, and 2016 was definitely rigged for Hillary Clinton. I mean, she ran the DNC, literally. That's not like a crazy thing I'm saying. Like, Obama defunded it, and then she took it over and put her money into it and controlled the whole thing. It was just, it's so insane, it's unbelievable, but there's tons of information on this, all different sources. Please look into it and see the parallels that you're seeing happen again. See, that's the problem. We need to learn from our history and not repeat it. Anyway, so, Bernie Sanders makes the thing, and makes that comment, and Rachel Maddow corrects him, rightfully so, the person with the most delegates. Yeah, whoever has the, so he agrees. Whoever has the most delegates at the convention in Milwaukee in July, the Democratic National Convention, should be the nominee, whether it's me or Joe Biden. And he's absolutely right. Because you have to understand what happens is if a candidate can't get 50% of the vote on the first round, then the superdelegates are allowed to vote and pick the candidate. There's 771 additional delegates that get to choose any candidate they want. It doesn't have anything to do with who voted for, what the people in the state voted for that they represent. They just pick whoever they want, and they're party elites in the Democratic Party. Powerful politicians, people with money and influence, they get to decide, which is completely undemocratic. So they say it's terrible that Trump had less votes than Hillary Clinton and won, and they're absolutely right. But you can't say that and then say, but it's okay for our party to do the same thing as the Electoral College does for the general elections, which are both archaic, elitist, corrupt systems. So it's because you have all these pundits on MSNBC and CNN and Democratic Party elites in general, whether they're in the party, they're politicians or they're analysts or they're lobbyists, they're all saying like, we have to let the convention play out and we have to follow the rules. And the rules are absurd. Your rules are anti-democratic. You're supposed to be the Democratic Party. The word's in your name. And you are inherently anti-democratic. This selection process is absurd. So it's obvious that we need to fight and make sure people understand this process and that they're trying to allow elites to potentially get involved. Now, Bernie Sanders campaigned since 2016. He did a unity tour with the Democratic Party. He pushed hard for Hillary Clinton, despite some consternation from some of his fans. He did far more for Hillary Clinton than Hillary Clinton did for Barack Obama. I believe she did like 8 events for him, speeches or something like that. Bernie Sanders did something like 38 plus additional appearances for Hillary Clinton. He was like going crazy for her. So for anybody, the rhetoric, it's a complete lie that Bernie Sanders did not go to bat for Hillary Clinton, and there's nobody to blame for the loss in 2016 to Trump but the Democratic Party elites and Hillary Clinton herself and the people that rigged the election for Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders. Now, people are upset, and people should have gotten a little more vocal and took to the streets in 2016, but they didn't. But you could bet your butt that with the climate emergency or climate crisis or climate change, whatever, that's serious, is getting to just insane levels, which, the science has known for quite some time. But this is like a powder keg waiting to explode. And if the Democratic Party thinks that it's going to, cheat in a bunch of caucuses and primaries, and make it harder for minorities and the youth to vote, and they're just going to sit home and do nothing, I don't think so. I think there's going to be a big showing in Milwaukee, massive protests of like millions of people. And in fact, I think I'm saying this because I think there will be, because it's very serious, and Joe Biden lets the planet burn. He's not about the Green New Deal, and also he has serious issues of people can just run that people will do whatever they want, all the people in his administration, because he's got mental faculties. The guy suffered. There's no doubt that he's been through a lot with his loss of family, his son dying and his first wife, I believe, dying, and the guy's had some tragedy in his life. But that doesn't mean that we should put, Bush. Excuse me, Trump is incompetent. Trump is senile, or makes all these verbal gaffes, and then pick somebody worse than him to fight him, who has worse numbers than Bernie Sanders to beat Trump. He's either tied or losing in almost like every state, when Sanders is tied or winning in almost every state, including key battleground states, and Bernie Sanders wins every county that went Obama, Trump, except like one in the entire country. There's so many metrics. He would bring out a ton of people on election day, and he would help get Democrats and progressives elected all across the country. But they'd rather have Donald Trump because they can keep all their, investments in media, which should be illegal. And I mean, like investments in like ABC, Disney, which do news, investments in CNN, MSNBC. I mean, look into it. It's absurd. And the more money you invest, somehow they allow larger gaps for the public information. So you can't really guess how much money they have. Like, for instance, like if you have I forget how it works exactly. I get the point. Let's say the first 1,000, it'll say 0 to 1,000. Then it'll say 1,000, and 1 cent to 5,000, and so on and so forth, way up the scale where it just gets ridiculous, and you have no idea how much these people in Congress have invested. But obviously, people that invest in media companies and pass policies that are beneficial to them and don't require them, to be held accountable when they lie or mislead people, as they claim to be news, you have a corrupt system where it's a quid pro quo back and forth, whether it's spoken or unspoken. It's not really relevant. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. People need to demand democracy and demand that the Democratic Party stay out of picking candidates and let the people choose. Let people know how this works. Let them know what happened in 2016. Thanks for watching Punk Rock Politics. Please like the video, share, comment, and consider becoming a member on Patreon.com and become a patron. I'm going to add some additional content on Patreon.com tonight for members who join. So we have some extra content for them. So thank you so much. And have a great night, and, fight the power.